Welcome to Music from Home, a video series created by the musicians of the Yakima Symphony Orchestra. I'm Principal Percussionist Josh Gianola, and today we're going to talk about the ins and outs of how to read percussion music and what that looks like. This is something I get a lot of questions about, and outside of the percussion community, I've learned that our art form is shrouded in mystery. I get questions all the time like, what does drum music look like? How do you know when to run to another instrument? Is the drum music written out, or do you just feel the beat? Well, yeah, a little bit of both. I'm going to answer all of these questions and more in a series that I'm calling What is Percussion? So when I get the music for any Yakima Symphony Orchestra performance, in one show, or sometimes even in one piece, you might be required to have 1, 3, 6, or 7, or 8 instruments that any one percussionist has to play. One piece that comes to mind as asking for a wide array of percussion instruments is Stevenson's Holly Jolly Sing-Along, a Yakima Symphony fan favorite. Due to copyright and royalty issues, I can't show you the actual music to Holly Jolly Sing-Along, but I can show you my very own handwritten version that has a few slight variations so we don't get sued. Okay, so you'll notice at the very beginning we have Glockenspiel. This is usually played with 4 mallets, the right hand doing the E flat and the A flat on the top, and then the C and the E flat, starting on beat 2, is covered by the left hand. In the first 4 measures, you see that we have a crash cymbal player, the Glock, and then a snare drum and bass drum player. In our second set of staffs, the Glockenspiel player has to transition to triangle. The tempo of this piece is 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, and so that means that the transition is going to be really quick. That if I were the Glockenspiel player, I might hit that triangle with a brass mallet that I was already holding for Glockenspiel. Now if we go down to this third little system, we have a bunch of craziness. We have the Glockenspiel player, the SB stands for sleigh bells, and in the bottom line, we have tempo blocks and slapstick. If there are 4 players, then we're going to be just fine, but then who's going to play this crash down in the following measure? This is a situation where without a 5th player, no one can actually physically get to that. So someone is going to hit that crash cymbal with a drumstick just on a suspended cymbal. Probably the tempo block player. So they'll go dun 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 psh, crash. The tricky thing with this part too is that all of these instruments require both your hands. You have to hold the sleigh bells, you need 2 different sticks for the tempo blocks, slapstick needs 2 hands, and crash cymbal needs 2 hands. The way we get around this is the tempo block player will whap that crash just on a suspended cymbal if we don't have a 5th player. Another thing to notice is that the sleigh bell player is going to have to, in just a couple of measures, set down their sleigh bells and go to suspended cymbal. So if this were their music, they would write a 2 sus during the rests. So prior to a show, it's the job of the principal percussionist to figure out who's going to play what and when. Here's an example of the percussion assignments for our 2018 performance of Holly Jolly Sing-Along. It is the responsibility of each individual performer to figure out their own transitions and write them in their own music in pencil in a way that they can understand. An example with less instruments that's still in this score formatting is Tchaikovsky's Symphony No. 4. If you're interested, you can check out Yakima Symphony's performance of this piece on YouTube. So this is what the percussion music looks like for the last page of the 4th movement. So looking at this is pretty messy, but it's public domain. The top staff with a treble clef is going to be the triangle part, and the bottom staff is going to be bass drum and crash cymbals. This is literally what it looks like. Someone wrote in right here in the last measure that maybe you should play crash cymbals and bass drum also. I've never heard that on a recording, so I would not dare. Now, so part of a percussionist's job is not only to play the right instrument, but to find the most artistically appropriate sound. Should we use really, really big crash cymbals or tiny crash cymbals? Should the triangle be small and crisp and light, or should it have deep, dark overtones? Should the bass drum be struck with a hard mallet or a light and fluffier mallet to get less of an articulate sound? You know, and there usually isn't a right answer. Your decisions are going to be based on your experience and the context of the piece. This is why a lot of percussionists spend a ton of time listening to recordings. The more recordings you listen to, the more great orchestras you listen to perform a piece, the more context you have, and the more informed a decision you can make about what kind of a tambourine to use. Good thing we have YouTube and Spotify, and Apple Music, and Disney Music, maybe? I don't know. Listening to recordings also helps a lot for a percussionist's possibly most critical job, counting rests. Let's take a look at Saint-Saëns's excellent and spooky piece, Danse Macabre. In just this first page, you will find 264 measures of rest. You'll also find 24 measures of playing. So you could say that counting rests correctly is critical. To further emphasize this point, the xylophone is a very bright and cutting instrument, so it's often featured, like it is here in Danse Macabre. Check out this video of me performing the xylophone part to Danse Macabre. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16, 9, 5, 6, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 16, 9, 1, 3, 4, 5, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, 18, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. So transitioning away from the orchestra, there's also an extensive repertoire of new solo pieces being written for percussion all the time. Just last month, Ryan M. Hare, principal bassoon of the Yakima Symphony Orchestra and an excellent composer, wrote this piece for solo snare drum. In the next video of this series, What is Percussion? I'll be performing this piece and talking a little bit through the dynamics, what the X's mean, how the grace notes work, and how to play this piece artistically and stylistically appropriate. Maybe some of you have noticed from the audience of YSO that occasionally a percussionist will be holding 4 mallets, or 2 in each hand. This happens all the time in the percussion repertoire, specifically with all of our marimba repertoire. This is a solo marimba piece entitled Fête de Boulevard by Central Washington University professor Mark Gudenberger. Notice how the marimba sometimes has 4 notes at once. You may also notice that there is a treble and a bass clef, as solo marimba music is often written with a grand staff. It is also worth noting that percussionists are well known for stealing great repertoire from string players. While some scholars may believe that Bach's 6 cello suites were written for cello, I personally think that great music written for anyone should be accessible to everyone. That includes percussionists. Well, that's about all we have time to cover in this episode of What is Percussion? Thanks so much for joining me and making it to the end of this video. I hope to see you in a concert hall very soon.